Can you guys hear me? All right, mic is on, cool. So there are no slides for this. There's no need for any slides. I truly am going to tell you a story. And this is about my journey, my personal journey with Deloitte Consulting. I'm going to tell you some patterns and some anti-patterns, some epic failures in working to build an architecture community at Deloitte. So show of hands, how many folks like architecture? I mean, you're here at this conference. Okay, cool. So you read about it, you listen to it, you know, it's cool. How many folks here are passionate about architecture? I mean, really passionate about it. I don't care if you're an enterprise architect, a data architect, app arch. I mean, you think about it, you talk about it, you write about it, you get together, you practice it, of course. Maybe you even dream about it. So that's me. And some of you who know me know that when I'm passionate about something, I really want to talk about it. I really want to share about it. I really want to build a sense of community around that. So when I joined Deloitte Consulting, I joined in 2007, and I was brought in as a framework architect. And on my first day, I realized how big this organization was. You know, people in an organization like this are organized according to how they can leverage resources, how they can leverage people. And my framework team was pretty small. I mean, framework teams can be really small. And we were snugged up underneath something called systems integration, relatively large group. So on day one, they gave me a laptop, and they showed me how to log my timesheet. Excellent. And then they took me to my cube spot. And I was getting pretty excited because I was going to be co-located with some of our largest delivery teams in the United States, delivering .NET project. And I was truly, truly excited. And then they introduced me to my team. And now my team was located in Hyderabad, and that was new for me, working remotely. But still, I was really excited about this. So it's a framework team, so what do? Well, I go out and get them copies of what was my favorite book at that point in time, which was the Framework Design Guidelines. I don't know if any of you guys have this. This is the Swalinda, forgive me if I say that the wrong way, Swalinda and Abrams book. And I sent it to these guys. I sent it to them and waited for them to get it, and then we talked about it. We talked about what was in the book, we talked about how we could apply it, and there was a little sense of community, and I was really jazzed. So then I said, okay, this is great. What other resources are there? Well, so I started to look. I did a little search of our internal intranet. I made some phone calls. I talked to some people. And what I uncovered was that we had a relatively disjointed set of resources and of people. There were some really good and smart people that were there. So I kept asking questions, and I eventually made my way to Javier. So Jav was the Microsoft guy. He was on the West Coast, and he'd been there for years and years. And what was really important about Javier is he was the guy who owned the newsletter. So, of course, I called him up, Jav, can you add me to the distribution list? And then I sat back and I waited, because you know what was going to happen? Amazing insights were going to be deposited into my inbox. That's what was going to happen. So a month later, the email comes. And I wait until my break, and I sit down, and I double-click on it, and I am absolutely and totally underwhelmed. I'm really underwhelmed. I am a little bit bummed. I looked at this, and it was really a bunch of well-intended folks, junior developers mostly, who were going out, and they were Googling, and they were searching the internet, and they were reading blogs, and they were reading some magazines, and they were paraphrasing. And a lot of times they were getting things right, and a lot of times they were getting it wrong. And it didn't tell me how to apply it to what I was doing. And I got a little bit bummed. And that's when I realized anti-pattern number one. Missionless newsletters. Well, I thought maybe it's just me. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I might be being too harsh about this. Maybe it really does have value. Maybe this was just a lame version this month. So I thought, well, what I need to do is I need to go and talk to some of my peers. So step one was to go and find them. Remember, I said it was kind of disjointed. We have teams all over the United States. We have teams all over the globe. So I thought, well, I'll reach out to the teams that are using the framework that I own, and I'll find out who are their lead developers and who are their architects. And it wasn't a small thing to do that. It took a little while. It took phone calls, and it took emails, and I uncovered that there were a lot of really smart people doing smart things, but they were really disconnected from one another. And that's when I realized that there was not a connective tissue. There wasn't a way that people were sharing these amazing things that they were doing. And that's where I discovered for myself something I call the lost tribes anti-pattern. That's what we had. We had these lost tribes, people just not connected with one another. So Javier and I, we're getting excited because I've uncovered people, right? We now have this network thing kind of growing. We've got a list of names. I can get to them in email. I can get them on instant message. And we're starting to get pretty good. And as we get to know people, we get to know what they're doing. And what I start to see is that there are a lot of people that are doing the same thing in different places, solving same types of challenges, maybe in different ways. And at first I thought this was kind of great, but the more that I saw this proliferation, I thought, oh my goodness, what are we doing? We're doing things differently. So what does every community need to do if people are doing things differently? You have to have governance, that's right. So we decided that we would try and help people by driving thought leadership from the top down. Epic fail. So that is anti-pattern number 3, having heavy-handed governance or trying to centralize that thought leadership. So it's around 2009, 2010, and I hit a wall. Now, not a ceiling, I literally hit a wall. It's like I was a runner, and I'm not a runner. And it was getting to be so much energy to slog through this, to find people, to look at newsletter entries that were coming. It just felt like a lot of effort. And I don't know where it occurred to me. Maybe it was out while I was riding my bike. I thought, if this were a system that I had written, if this was something that I had architected, it was non-performant at best. So what were the quality attributes? Well, what was the real reason that we were doing this? I don't know. And I asked why. And we, together, talked about what a community should be and a community shouldn't be, and what we wanted it to be. And that's where we got to positive pattern number 1, which was having a charter. Now, don't groan at the word charter. All that we did was talk about what our vision was. Why were we doing this? So hobbyists might start a community because they want to network, right? And a big corporation might do this. They might even sponsor it monetarily because they want to fine-tune people's skills. So personally, pure and simple, all I wanted to do was collaborate. That's it. What Deloitte wanted to do was to build and retain resources. And so I thought those 2 goals naturally aligned. So we wrote that down. We had our vision, so we had our why. And then we came up with a couple of simple things on how we were going to build this community. We had to start someplace. We had to refactor somehow. We came up with three things that we were going to focus on. We were going to provide a recurring forum for people to talk. We're all in different locations at that point. We'll do it virtually. We're only going to invest in really effective communication. That means that the newsletter has to go away for a little while until we figure it out. We started a Yammer Feed. We use that internally as our way to talk with one another. Let's see, and our Yammer Feed, and then we had an RSS feed because some folks were interested in that. So now we had our whys and our whats, and we decided that we needed to have community-led initiatives. Remember I said there were a lot of smart people doing a lot of smart things individually? And remember I also said there was an epic fail, that we were going to try and control thought leadership from the top down? Well, the way to course correct on that is to say, hey, you go ahead and do what you want to do. We'll provide some guidance, some structure around this, but you go ahead and do what you need to do. So I started something that I call chapter model. I have stolen that shamelessly from the PMI. Centrally, we provide guidance. We provide sometimes some monies. We help to steer folks and align them as best we can. We try to be that connective tissue, but ultimately, we let people do what they're going to do. That's a really positive pattern. That's that positive pattern number 2, which is decentralizing, kind of going horizontal, if you would. So one of the best examples I have of this is that I have a guy named Pankaj, and Pankaj is in Mumbai. Man is so excited about automated unit testing. And a group from Hyderabad heard about it and said, oh, man, we're really excited. We want to work with Pankaj. But we don't know anything about, really, the automated unit testing frameworks. Well, I knew Philippe. Philippe was in Pittsburgh. Connected them together, and I have to tell you, it was fantastic. All I did was every once in a while peer in to see what was going on, and their energy together, their momentum, what we ended up at the end of it was people who were having fun, getting together on their own accord, and Deloitte got some assets out of it. We got some smart people, we got some framework guidelines, we had a couple of webinars. It was fantastic. So, you know, I said that we started to move towards success. But I want to tell you, in order to move towards success, you have to define success. So during the course of this week, how many times when we've heard about DevOps has somebody said you have to have a metric, right? Same thing when you're building a community. You got to have something to measure against. So we defined success for ourselves very, very, very simply. It's how many people are showing up at our calls each month, how many people are contributing to our Yammer conversation. That's it. That's all we needed to start with. It was a place to start. And over time, we've gotten smarter about it, about as we get more educated in the things that we're doing, as we build more communities, as we have more chapters spin up, we have different metrics. But ultimately, it was defining those metrics. And an important part of defining those metrics was our ability to look at it and know when we were hitting it and when we weren't hitting it, and the ability to pivot. So when we weren't doing things the right way, we had to change. And that was okay. What's that sound a lot like? That sounds a lot like agile, right? Yeah, lowercase agile. So that's going to be my 4th positive pattern. 4th positive pattern is going to be embrace lowercase agile. Embrace the principles. Come on. Transparency. Open communication. The ability to look at your to-do list and reprioritize because you've had a discovery and something has changed. Wow. It sounds amazing and earth-shattering, but you'd be surprising how much of a culture change it is to do that. So 3 anti-patterns, 4 patterns. When I joined Deloitte, there was around 40 people. We're about to break 500. The community of practice is what we call extracurricular. It's not your day job. It's the stuff that you like to do on your break. It's the stuff that you're willing to invest extra time in. So there's no one recipe, right? It's just like the architectural design that we have. You've got to ask why. You've got to have that charter. You've got to have some metrics, and you've got to steer towards that. But if you take those first steps, I'm pretty positive with some energy that you'll probably grow your community too. Thanks.